What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Knowles and Dogs podcast. I'm Hunter,
I'm Dylan.
and we are recapping championship weekend as well as talking about the playoff rankings that just got announced today. The official rankings for the playoff that will be happening December 31st. But before we do that, how are we doing? How was our weekend?
Oh, I think we're doing great, actually. I think it's a pretty nice weekend. Beautiful weather in Tampa Bay.
There we go.
What more can you ask for? What more could you ask for right now?
That's right. It was pretty good. It was pretty good weather throughout the entire week and weekend. But, repping the national title shirt, hoping for a run back.
Repping the Bolts. Got those Bolts. Going to the game on Tuesday.
There we go. Who are they playing?
Red Wings. They're playing the Red Wings. It's at 7 on Tuesday night. So I'll be there. Good seats, too.
Can't complain about that.
No, I'm excited.
All right. I'm trying to think of anything we need to talk about before we get into it, or just want to hop right in.
I think we could just hop right in. I think let's get started.
Okay. All right. So, further ado, we'll get right into it. Championship weekend. We'll recap the conference titles. We'll start, since this is a Georgia and Florida State podcast, we'll start in Atlanta for the SEC title game.
Mm-hmm.
Go a little out of order. The Georgia Bulldogs, my reigning national champion Georgia Bulldogs, finally did something they haven't done since 2017, and that is win an SEC championship. And boy, it feels nice. It does feel nice. National titles are nice, but when you get to be claimed net kings of the SEC, it does feel good. Especially coming off of what happened last year, losing 15 guys to the draft, 14 to the portal. We didn't pick up a single guy from the portal. You lose 6 to 7 starters on D. It does feel good. We're playing an LSU team that's solid, nothing overly crazy about them. Granted, and we just came out dominated right from the start, and it took a awesome special teams blunder by the LSU. I don't know. Did you watch the game at all?
I watched a little bit of it. I watched the right after halftime. It was just I think you could agree with me. It just felt like LSU was overmatched.
Yes. So
and they shouldn't have even been on the same field for most of that game.
So I'll give you a brief insight. So it's 0-0, and LSU's driving down the field, 13 plays. They're down to inside the 30. You got to stop. We stop him. Go for a field goal. He gets blocked. And it's ironically, I was like, don't miss it. Don't miss it. It'd be a shame if you missed it. And then he blocked it. I think it was Stackhouse. Blocked it. And so the ball goes to about the 4-yard line. And Christopher Smith, our senior safety, just kind of stands over top of the ball with his hands just above it. He looks to the left at the one ref. He looks over to the right, the other one. And then all of a sudden he picks it up and just takes it 96 yards for the touchdown. And folks don't know the rule. As long as the ball doesn't cross the goal line, if it's blocked or something, it's a live ball still. That kind of set the tone. LSU struck right back at 7, and then we just kind of decided, oh, wait, we're the better team. LSU defended the run pretty well at the start. And then so Stetson Bennett was like, okay, we'll just beat you through the air. And that's exactly what they did. And we scored, got another turnover. And the next turnover, the interception, hit off of Mason, what's his last name?
I saw that play.
And off of his head, redirected off Javon Buller's hand, and then right into Smile London's hands. For his next play, we scored. And like that, I mean, it was 21-7 at the end of one, or 14. It was 14-3 after one, and then it was
it was
14-7 after
21
one.
actually. I think you're right.
And then it was, before we knew it, it was like, it was right around like the 5-minute mark, or closing in about the 5-minute mark. It was 35-7. Georgia came out just like with bad intentions on their mind, and I do think a mix of wanting to just prove a point, like, hey, listen, we don't, we remember 2019. Listen, we know you guys had us then, but and remember, so Georgia hasn't beaten LSU before yesterday. We're shooting this at Sunday, December 4th. They haven't beaten them since 2013 when Zach Metton.
It had been a minute. It had been a minute since they'd really taken it to town with them.
Almost a decade, and they finally beat them, and they came out. Now, the stats may not look overly impressive from a defensive standpoint. I will say our secondary struggled. Jaden Daniels, kudos to him, didn't really have – he wasn't 100% by any stretch of the means, dealing with like an ankle injury he suffered back in A&M. But, listen, that was no excuse for any of them. Jalen Carter. Oh, my God, I love Jalen Carter. He is so insane. He picked Jaden Daniels up in the second quarter, picked him up with one hand, and just pointed up in the sky and said one. Just picked him up, and just spun him around. I mean, he's insane. He made a game-changing tackle, 4th down, when LSU was about to almost cut it to 11. And when we were messing around in the third quarter, like we do, because they get bored and they're just like, oh, we'll let him back in it. Yeah. They put there was 4th down and 1, and Jalen Carter pushed a guy, John Emery, who's an offensive lineman for LSU, who weighs around 360 pounds, takes him and just shoves him out of the way and dives for his the running back's legs and tackles him. Insane. It was 4th and 1, too. Just shoves him out of the way. Insane. So I'm just going to briefly go through some stats here. Just because. Oh, by the way, and then Georgia, just for fun, was up 48-23, and we went for 2 and got it 50-23. They brought in LSU, so the Dogs get it done 50-30. Feels good.
Big win.
Cap off 13-0. They did bring in LSU's backup quarterback. I don't know if you've ever seen this guy. His name's.
I did see. I saw the one play where he spun out of a tackle and threw a touchdown into the end zone. Yeah. I saw that.
Joe Burrow on his feet, yeah. Give me like Joe Burrow nightmares again. His name's Greg. It's Garrett Nussmeier. This guy's a stud. I mean, he throws a really good ball. Now, granted, I will say, so our defense gave up. The pass defense gave up. We did give up 549 yards of total offense, 502 yards to the air. Now, we did only hold them to 47 yards rushing on 20 carries. But that part did concern me a little bit. It was more Keely Ringo. And we'll talk about this down the road. But and I will say, I will give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt because Georgia was up so big early that they were pretty much playing like prevent zone the entire time, the rest of the day, where they were like, because you knew they were going to have to pass. Georgia did create 4 turnovers yesterday, 3, and then you cut the block for a touchdown. So I will say, I don't understand, and we're going to talk about this in a second, Georgia's inability to. I don't know why they play zone. They do so much better in man. And they did it. They played man against Tennessee, and they put them on lockdown. And I don't know why they play zone, and they just let them play free. They did the same crap a couple of years ago in 2020 against Will Rogers in Mississippi State. When Will Rogers almost came in, it was J.D. Daniels' first game. And Will Rogers came in and just lit us up. But we won, luckily. But they played this zone crap, and they pretty much was like, well, when you can't get home, you're going to get burned. And it kind of happened like that. Luckily, our offense is so good, and LSU just depth-wise just had nothing. There was a point in the first half when Georgia's defense or offense made an entire substitution, and nobody in LSU made a substitution. Like they all looked to the sideline, and they were like, they had nobody else to go. So, but Georgia rolls. I don't know if you have anything to say about it real quick.
Nothing more to add about this game other than the fact that, for all it's worth, this is still a good first season for Brian Kelly at LSU.
Yeah.
Being able to flip the more or less flip the ship that Ed Ogeron had done to that LSU program after the national championship is impressive to me. And while I think the depth was an issue for the whole year, and the biggest issue with them haunted them again tonight or last night with special teams. Because
Oh my God! It's special teams again. Special teams.
The funny thing is, I remember arguing with people about the Florida State game, right? The Florida State LSU game to start the season, and people saying that Florida State won on a fluke blocked field goal. And I think if you look back at it, LSU had like 6 or 7 field goal attempts blocked this season.
Special teams. Horrible.
So at some point,
go to the Tennessee
you got to go, man. I don't. Yeah.
You go to Tennessee game. I mean,
Georgia blocked a field goal. Florida State blocked two kicks. That's 3 right there. They had 1 blocked against Tennessee, 1 blocked against Alabama.
Well, they had the muffed fumble against Tennessee in the opening kickoff. It's just bad.
They had 2 muffed fumbles in the Florida State game. Or muffed punts. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're going to say – I'll finish what you're saying.
Yeah, no, so I would just say if I was an LSU fan right now, I would be excited for the future, but the biggest thing I would want is, call me crazy, but I want that backup to be the starter next year. Because I think he has more potential than – because I think we've seen everything Jaden Daniels can do this year.
Yeah.
In this offense.
I was actually just going to say that. I said, if you're looking for an early teaser on a futures pick for betting, look for LSU to win the West next year. Look at whatever the value is, because I'm telling you, this kid right here, Garrett Newhouser, whatever his last name is, I don't remember. He's good. And
I saw some of those clips. He looked really good.
Looked really good. I mean, we had most of our starters in too, so it's not like we really only took Jalen Carter out until like really the end of the game, because Jalen Carter's our best player, and we didn't want him to get hurt on some fluky play. Like Lad McConkey got hurt yesterday, and Warren McClendon did too. Like, so they weren't really doing that. But man, I'll just say real quick, Jalen Carter. I mean, when you take him out, it's a totally different defense. But back to LSU. Yeah, they're. I think Keishawn Butte is the only one that's really going to be leaving, unless they're and Kelly's going to have a top 10, top 5 recruiting class, so they should be good. I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback next year. That's going to be interesting to follow, but they got a quarterback. I'll tell you that at least. And they got on the defensively. I think B.J. Ojolari is going to be back. Harold Perkins is only going to be a sophomore next year.
Yep.
Like, they got some dudes. They just need depth. The depth killed them down the stretch here.
Yep, and which was a problem going into the season, was that they had guys transfer out who they really needed, and they weren't because Brian Kelly was hired kind of late into the process for hiring coaches these days. They weren't really able to put together the recruiting class depth they really wanted. So look towards, like, especially this offseason, for them really targeting in the transfer portal like crazy. I'm telling you, they're gonna finish with a top 5 recruiting class and a top 5 transfer class. Like, don't be surprised if they win 10, 11 games next season.
And then listen, I mean, you don't know what Bama's going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Bama, you never know. You'll see what Auburn's up to with Hugh Freeze now. We'll see how Ole Miss. I saw a stat. Ole Miss, so Lane Kiffin's never beaten a coach or beaten an SEC team that with a 500 record or better in the SEC.
At that time, or just ever?
I think ever. Could be wrong.
Like, at the time, they had a 500 record.
No, when they finished.
Because I was going to say, because I'm pretty sure they beat A&M last year.
They did, but they didn't finish with a 500 record. A&M didn't.
I thought they did, because they went 8-4.
Yeah, but they didn't finish with a 500 record in the SEC then.
Oh, in SEC play. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to double check that stat real quick, just so we don't communicate
offense.
misinformation, but
Yeah, right. Quick couple stats here before we move off from this game. Georgia had 255 rushing yards. We would have scored on an opening drive the second half, and then we fumbled the ball in the red zone, like we always do. Stetson Bennett threw for 274 and 4 touchdowns, all in the first half. Stetson Bennett's really good. And I'm not a biased or homer when I say this, but he needs to be, and I don't say he's going to win it, but he needs to be seriously considered to be in New York for the Heisman.
yeah.
I'm not. Caleb Williams had a shot to close this thing out. Didn't. I think Max Duggan locked it up. I think what he showed on Saturday, and we're going to talk about it in a second, is insane. Yeah, I mean that's really just putting your team on your back. I mean, but he couldn't finish the job though. C.J. Stroud didn't play, and when the biggest game of the year came around, he did not play well at all. Blake Corum's hurt. Hendon Hooker got hurt. You look at Stetson Bennett. I saw a stat. He's thrown 13 touchdowns to 2 interceptions against AP top 25 teams. This is AP top 25 teams on. 13 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's undefeated, and this is this year, and counting AP. Over 1,400 yards. The next closest is like Stroud at like 1,000, or 1,100 yards. So Bennett's clearly ahead of all that. And what's he do? He's won. They win. He's like 26 or 27-2 as a starter. I mean, he wins.
So are you? I'm gonna stop you right there. Are you saying you think Stetson Bennett should go to New York for the Heisman?
See, I don't know if he should go to New York for Heisman. I don't think he's going to win it by all sorts of means. I think Max Duggan's going to win it. I
don't think Max Duggan's going to win it. I still think Caleb Williams wins it because his stats are still so much better.
And that's what I think because people are going to look back at it. But
yeah, because it's not what you did at the end. It's the whole body of work.
But when you look at Caleb Williams, though, and I understand he had a great year, a phenomenal year.
Yeah.
The 2 games that mattered the most, he couldn't get it done. Couldn't get it done. I mean, Heisman voters, you look at the winners too. You have to look at winning, like the big games. He was not able to win the big games. They didn't play Oregon this year. They didn't play Washington this year, so you don't know about that. The biggest game they really played was UCLA, and it took DTR to throw 3 picks in that game.
And Notre Dame. They did play Notre Dame.
But Notre Dame doesn't have a quarterback.
And that's
Drew Pine.
And that was also that's C.J. Stroud's best win too.
And C.J. Stroud, they didn't play well that game.
No, they
C.J.
didn't.
Stroud's game. I know they didn't play that well that game.
Yeah, they didn't.
No, they only won by 11.
Yeah, they didn't play that well, and he didn't play that well either.
No, he didn't play that well. And against Penn State, he struggled. Michigan, he struggled. And we're going to talk about this. But C.J. Stroud just hasn't showed up yet in these big games. He did it last year, too. Couldn't show up in the big game. Especially when you set a real defense in front of him, he's not very good right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not saying he might be, because only 4 guys get to go. He might be. I'm not saying he will. There's a lot of people on Twitter who think he wants to, but you never know. His record holds it. He's a team guy. If you look at the definition of the Heisman Trophy winner, I don't know it off the top of my head, but it has to do with like being a team player, having the right goals, and like doing what it takes to win. He has all 3 of those. Plus, he has the record, the stats to show it. And he doesn't have these gauntly stats because they don't need him to have. You know, they want to run the ball down their throat in the second half once they're up. They don't need him to throw it. Why would we need him to throw it when we're up? We don't need him to put up gauntly numbers when we're up by 20 every game. You know, he does what he needs to do.
Well,
he had a
I understand that, but
type game. In this LSU.
No, I agree.
No,
I agree that. But if you look at his whole body of work, though, right now, you would go because he has 16 touchdowns?
Let's see.
Well, passing touchdowns.
I have a stats pulled up.
Because I got Caleb Williams and Max Duggan's stats up right now.
Here we go. So Bennett has 3,425 yards. Mm-hmm. He's 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I don't know. Let's see, but he also has 7 touchdowns rushing.
Okay.
So he has 7 touchdowns rushing.
So-
He has 27 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's only been sacked 7 times. God, that's crazy. He has a passer rating of 154, 68% completion percentage. And just say, let's see. There's 1, 2, 4, 5. There's 5 guys on our roster that have at least 25 catches or more.
Yeah.
So he spreads the ball around. He doesn't turn the ball over. He only has, let's see, how many interceptions do you have? He only has 6 picks. Yeah, so we just said that. He only has 6 picks, so he doesn't turn the ball over. He doesn't fumble the ball at all either. I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't need to be in New York, but he needs to be maybe considered for it. And
I
I'm
think
not
he'll finish
being
top
crazy.
10 in voting, but I'll just give you.
Top 8.
I'm going to give you Caleb Williams numbers. I'm going to give you
Who
Caleb
would you-
Williams numbers right now,
who
just
would
so
you
you can
send to
get
me?
like comparison. But
Well, yeah, but if you look at,
I'm going
it's two
to
different
give
circumstances.
Williams numbers real quick.
I understand
Yeah.
that.
But let me give you Williams numbers real quick, okay?
Okay. I
So
understand.
Williams
this.
threw for 4,075 yards. He threw for 37 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a QBR of 86.5, and then he also had 10 touchdowns on the ground. So his total was 47 total touchdowns, which led FBS. He was tied for first in passing touchdowns. He's number 1 in total touchdowns. He's 4th in yards. He's tied for 12th in turnovers.
So
He also has the
I'm
5th
gonna
highest
say-
QBR.
So I will say, Stetson Bennett's 11th in passing yards.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, but if you look, that's 2 separate situations though. USC's defense can't stop anybody for shit. I watched that USC Pac-12 game. That was pathetic. What I watched on Friday night, and we're going to talk about it in a second. That was pathetic.
Yeah.
It's 2 totally different situations. USC needs him to throw the ball. They have nobody else. They can't do anything. If you saw, and we're going to talk about, we might just lead into it. USC cannot stop anybody. Or USC can't do anything if Caleb Williams isn't around. And you saw that perfectly on Friday night. They couldn't do anything. And if somebody had USC to win, that was not good. And it showed. When you rely on somebody to put up these numbers, and these are hell of some numbers right here, but he has to put these numbers up, otherwise they weren't going to be nowhere near what their record was, because their defense, you can't rely on their defense to make a stop. We'll do a Heisman segment one of these days. When's the Heisman?
Yeah.
It's like 2 weeks from now, a week from now. I know voting.
Let me just
ends
double check. I think it's the.
Voting ends Monday.
No, it's like into January.
Well, no, because it happens before the playoff. I remember that. I think I think it's this week. It's next weekend because it's always after Army Navy. I think it is. Are you sure? I think it's after Army Navy.
Yeah, last year was on December 11th, so
Yeah.
the finals will be
That's
announced
because-
tomorrow. They announce the finals tomorrow, and the
As of
ceremony
Monday,
is on this
December
Saturday
5th.
at 10.
Yep. We'll see. Anyway, as we just said, we'll just lead right into it. USC, Utah. Also, go Dogs. Okay, just go Dogs. Anyway, USC, Utah, Friday, Pac-12 title game. We'll set the scene. We'll backdrop it. USC, all they have to do is win, and they are in the playoff. What do? They do the exact opposite. They get their butts whooped. Utah bends them over and just starts slapping them, just like this. Boom, 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 without a care in the world. They did whatever they wanted, and we kind of briefly talked about this. If Utah was going to win, they would just have to – they would need another big-time game from Cam Rising. And we said that there was possibly 2 ways this game could go. It was either going to be Utah or USC was going to just come out with a point to make, and that they were going to say, listen, we're not going to – what happened last time is not going to happen again. We're going to come out. We know what we have to do. We have our goal set. We're going to get there. Or it's going to be Utah's just going to run. Take it to – just say, like, listen, we're the more physical team. We're the better team. We beat you already once. We'll just have no problem doing it again.
Yep.
And that's what Utah did. Now, granted, early, USC was doing whatever they wanted. 17-3 out of the gates. And it looked like,
Yeah.
USC is just going to run away with this one. And then, couple stops, and Utah finds herself right back in it. Going into half, I think it was tied at 17. And then from that point on, third quarter, boy, oh boy, oh boy. I'm going to pull some stats up. Utah.
So,
You go
I
ahead.
will
Talk.
give
I'm gonna find some stats.
context. Yeah, I will give you some context to why USC's offense just could not score after that. So, Caleb Williams did pull his hamstring, which meant he was completely limited as a runner, and Utah really got to them defensively. They really completely matched up with Lincoln Riley's system. They knew what was coming, and they just got beat. They got beat big time.
Well,
there's no way to clearly put.
I was just saying, Caleb Williams but he was missing guys open.
Yeah.
And missing them, not good. Just continue now. I just wanted to input that.
Yeah. No. So he did pull his hamstring, and he's already, it's said on here, he most likely will not be playing the bowl game because of that. But
there's no need.
There really isn't. Yeah, it's a significant hamstring injury, but there's not much you can do when that happens there. But for them to just completely disappear in that second half is just
wild,
surprising.
They got outscored 30-7.
Yep.
What? Excuse me? I mean, if you didn't watch the game and you just looked at the stats, you'd be like, oh, Caleb Williams, hell of a night. 28 of 41, 363, averaged about 9 yards a pass, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, QBR at 81. You'd be like, that's not a bad night. But if you watch the game, most of that came in the first half.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just throwing the ball wherever he wanted. And then he got hurt. And it really wasn't even on the most wild of play. Like, he got sacked, I think, or just got knocked down.
Yeah.
And then he just wasn't the same sense. I know people were looking at he like cut his finger or something, and he was bleeding. And then all of a sudden, you just saw him limping.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
I don't know.
He cut his finger on, like, a face mask, and then he had a hamstring injury, so I mean, you can't put it all on that, but it does affect the fact that if you score 24 points and your defense gives up 47, I mean, they didn't even really USC turned the ball over once. You know what I mean? Like, you can't say it's all on the offense. The defense they could not stop Utah at all.
They had 2 turnovers.
Yeah, you're right. They're fumble. Sorry about that. But yeah, they did. Caleb Williams only had 1 interception, though. It wasn't like.
But it was a big time.
You know what I mean?
It was
like
crucial.
Yeah.
It was. And remember, they were driving. The game was still within kind of reach. Everything was like a 10-point game late in the game, and he just threw it away. He threw it right to the guy. The guy just made a nice play on it, but I mean, it was 1 pick, but I mean, it was a big time one because that kind of sealed the game. But the Cam Rising, go through your stats. 22, 34, 310, almost 9 yards a carry, or threw for 9.1 average, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 81 QBR. And we talked about this. Cam Rising was just he could not turn the ball over. And he did that. He did it against Utah, or he did it against USC last time, and he did it again last night. The USC defense, I don't know if you want to talk about it real quick, but they're atrocious.
They're bad.
I don't know the exact stat because they got updated mid-game. They had a screen. They posted a little picture on the screen during the game. They had 22 missed tackles at that point, and they missed eight more after that. I mean, that's pathetic. The 1 3rd and 19. Are you kidding me? Excuse me. Are you kidding me? 3rd and 19, you give up a touchdown? There was 5 missed tackles on that play. Mm. Are you serious right now?
Yeah.
You can't. What is this?
I remember watching that. It was like.
This isn't.
They did not wrap up at all.
What are they getting fancy in Hollywood for? But you can't do that. You got to tackle them.
No. I think USC needs to fire their defensive coordinator after that one.
Oh,
yeah. Alex Grinch should not have a job next year.
Did he come with Lincoln Riley?
Yes, he did come from Oregon. Or, I mean, Oklahoma, yeah.
See, I don't
He
know
was like
why
the
Lincoln Riley.
one coordinator who went with him. Well,
Did we not see what
uh,
he did in Oklahoma?
the thing is, Oklahoma, he was able to get guys to the league, which I think was the biggest thing. It's because
I
he had like
guess.
he had athletes on the field who could play well, but they were never good as a unit.
Spare me.
Specifically because he can like their secondary is always atrocious. Like it's just
I know
bad.
some Steelers have a guy. They have Trey Norwood on their team. He's not terrible, but I mean, you tell me one Oklahoma guy that's succeeded so far in the league on the defensive side.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of any. No.
I mean, off the top of my head, I can't really think of any, but they have a couple linebackers and corners who got drafted somehow.
Trey
Like high
Norwood.
picks too.
Trey Norwood wasn't terrible. He wasn't bad. He was pretty good at Oklahoma. He's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
He was like a Steelers 4th or 5th rounder. He's not terrible. He gets his plays in, but I mean, he didn't start for us, I don't think. But just quickly run through the stats, or just team stats, and we'll move on. USC or Utah outgained USC in first downs, 25-19. They were 5 of 12. This was another big stat, and this one was huge in the second half. Utah 5 of 12 on third down. They were 1 for 1 on fourth. Here comes probably one of the biggest stats of the game. Nobody's going to talk about third down efficiency. You want to take a shot with that? What's USC third down?
What's USC's third down efficiency? I'm guessing they went 2 for 10 or something like that. Like they were terrible.
1 for 12
on third down. They could not.
Yeah, that's 1 for 12,
yeah.
And then they went 3 of 5 on fourth down. That's just not going to get it done. You're not going to win a game. I don't care how good you are. If you're on 1 for 12 on third downs, you're not doing anything. You're not going to do anything. USC gave up 533 yards of offense. They gave up 300 yards passing, and then they gave up 223 yards on the ground, or 223 yards on the ground. You're not going to do anything. I mean, Utah averaged about 6 yards a rush. That's it. USC couldn't run the ball, 56 yards. We said this going in. I said this. Travis Dye played last game. Didn't play this game. Travis Dye made an impact last game. He didn't this game. No, nobody made an impact this game. 56 yards rushing. They only averaged 2 yards a carry on 27 rushes. Not going to get it done. And then they went. They outgained Utah in time possession, but I mean, it's just USC. Just the fact that they weren't able to close it out. I mean, we look at the rankings now because they dropped all the way from 4 to 10. It's funny. Just you can't. It just I don't know how you just fall apart like that. And now I want to give you a little question here. Knowing that your season's on the line, and Lincoln Riley said something about this in the post game. Why aren't you taking your quarterback out? You know he's hurt. He said something about how he went up to ask him if he was 100%, and Caleb Williams said no, I'm not even 50, but you're not taking me out. And Lincoln Riley was like, all right, excuse me, who's in charge here?
Well, okay, I'm gonna stop you there because I do think at least to Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley, I don't think they can win the game without Caleb Williams. So if the season's on the line and Caleb's not there, the season's over already.
But I will say, come on, you have to know, you have a better shot than at this point putting the backup in and seeing what he can do. Why would you risk your season, put your season on the line with a quarterback quarterback on one leg? He didn't do anything in the second half.
The only reason I can say is to be fair, he is the Heisman favorite. He's done this all season for you guys. He's been for most of the season one of the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the country. He's one of the best arms. He's a future NFL guy. Yeah, when he's healthy, but to a degree,
he wasn't healthy.
I do think at that point, Lincoln Riley has the trust in Caleb, where he goes, "If you don't want me to take you out, I will not take you out. This is your team."
But you need to be able to do something then. And if I was Lincoln Riley there, whenever he said that, I would have given him maybe 2 or 3 drives, depending on how long the drives took and how fast they were getting the ball back. Because if I'm not getting anything like he did, I mean, if you look at just the box score, I mean, You look at the scoring summary here.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't score it all in the third quarter. Like, that can't happen. And he got hurt in the second quarter, late second quarter. And they only had 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they didn't do anything in the third and fourth quarter. They scored late in the fourth, but come on. You got to know he's hurt. And they should have been getting the other quarterback warmed up way before. But, like, listen, dude, I don't want to do this, but it's our best chance of possibly winning the game. Because you're not healthy, you're getting sacked, and I don't want to put you at risk for your future. Because God forbid something happens or he just does something super, like he just injures it to such a bad extent that it doesn't ever fully recover. Now that hopefully it would never happen, but you don't want to just do something like that when you know the game. Especially, why was he still out there late in the game? The game's out of reach.
After the game was out of reach, I don't understand why he was still out there. But at the point where he was hurt and he said he wasn't really 100%. Yeah.
He came out
but at the
after
point where he
sacked.
was hurt and it was still within reach. When the game was still in reach, I completely understand why he was still in the game. Because at that, he is your number one guy. But I don't want to stay too much longer in this game because we have spent a long time on it.
Yeah. I would just say, last thing, he should have been out.
Yep.
That's my last one, and we'll move on. He should have been out of that game the second after he threw that pick.
Mm-hmm.
The final pick he threw, he should have been out of the game. He surely should have been out of the game way before that. But that's not for me to decide. But USC chokes their thing away. And have fun at the Cotton Bowl. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on.
All right. We'll move on to the next matchup. TCU gets stunned in overtime by Kansas State. And wow. We talked about this for a second. Yeah, that was a great game. But we both talked about how going into this game, it would not be that crazy for Kansas State to win. We both said that we would not be that shocked if Kansas State won. And I can look at one stat right now and tell you exactly why Kansas State won. Similar to USC, TCU went 2 for 15 on third down.
Not going to get it done.
I don't know how many games you're going to win doing that.
No, if you can't convert on third down, like I just said, I don't care how good you are, if you're not converting on third down efficiently enough, and I'm not asking for perfection, but it can be better than 1 of 12 and 2 of 15. Good Lord. Continue.
I don't know exactly which way we should go with this one, but what I'll say is that both of these teams were pretty good. They went into this game. Yeah, we'll start the Kansas State side. Kansas State came to play today. Yesterday. They came because they wanted to get their revenge. They felt like they were the better team when they played early in the season when they had their quarterback go down. Kansas State kept up with everything TCU threw at them. There was nothing they were surprised for. And even when TCU came back and tied it and the game went to overtime, I don't know how you felt watching the game, but it just felt the whole time like Kansas State wanted this game so badly. They wanted this game so much more than TCU wanted it, which is weird because, you know what I mean, there's a playoff spot potentially on the line, but I mean, congrats to the Wildcats. They played a great game and they have a great season. They're going to go beat Alabama in a bowl game.
Ooh, hot take right there.
I don't think it's a hot take.
So I will briefly just say one thing, Kansas State, and I'll talk about TCU.
Mm-hmm.
Biggest X factor, and he didn't really have a big game last time they played each other. Because Will Howard only threw for 18 to 32, 199 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. Played efficient enough. But the big guy, Deuce Vaughn, he only had 93 yards rushing last time they played each other.
Mm-hmm.
He had 130 yards rushing, and he had 180 in total. He had 30 receiving yards. 126 carries, 130 yards, averaged 5 yards a carry. He had the big one long run where he broke the guy's ankles, and he had that touchdown. I mean, that was the biggest story. I mean, TCU just couldn't stop the run. I mean, they gave up. Let me see.
Yeah.
They gave 205 yards on the ground. Kansas State.
They gave up over 200. Yeah.
Yeah, each. It was a pretty tightly contested game, first half, and then
Yeah,
or
I would
second
say
half
these
it just
two teams were pretty evenly matched for the most part.
yeah, and then the second half just the floodgates opened, at least
Hmm.
late it did. Um, but kudos to Kansas State, like I said, or like we said, they didn't really light the world on fire. I mean, they had just over 400 yards in total offense. Most of their, I mean, they had 190 yards, 199 yards passing, 205 yards through on the ground. Efficient. That's called being
Hmm.
balanced right there.
Yep.
Doing what you need to do. They only turned the ball over once. It was a fumble. They went 5 of 16 on third down, but they went 2 of 3 on fourth. So they did what they needed to win. Kudos to them. TCU now. So TCU was in a different spot, and unlike Dylan, I thought that they could lose as long as they didn't get blown out. They would still make the
Hmm.
playoff. Now I thought possibly they could drop to 4, um, but they don't. Well, just spoiler alert if you haven't seen already. So they stayed at 3. But
Yeah.
I thought that they would be safe. They've already locked their spot as long as they didn't get like beat by 40. And early it was, well, even late it was like an 11-point game. But
Hmm.
man, oh man, there's a guy named Max Duggan, and he is something else. He's something else. He's put, you know what the definition of putting your team on your back? That fourth quarter drive he had when he rushed for 95 yards, himself, he rushed for 95 yards, including that big one long, like 45-yard run.
Hmm.
He couldn't even breathe. Like, he scored the touchdown and just sat there on his knees. And, like, if you saw the 2-point conversion he had, the tied at 28, he just kind of just, like, looked like he was, like, about to pass out, and he just kind of, like, flicked it. And it luckily got there. Like, he didn't, like, people were trying to celebrate, and he was just like, get out of the way. I got to sit down. Like, what
Yeah.
an absolute warrior. A dog. A hypnotoad. Whatever you want to call him. He's a frog. Um, he put, like,
Horn frog.
actually they are the Texas State horned lizard. We looked it up. Um, that's what the horned frogs are. So,
Oh, okay.
there is such thing as a horned frog. I'm not going to get, like, zoologist on me, but on you guys, but they are named after the Texas State horned lizard. We have confirmed.
Okay.
Anyway, back to Max Duggan. He played out of his mind. I mean, 18 of 36, 251 yards. He had 1 touchdown, 1 pick. He threw for 83. He had about 83 QBR, but he had 15 carries, 110 yards rushing. Averaged 7 yards a rush, 1 touchdown. And he almost had the game-winning touchdown in overtime. But I'll go through that overtime real quick. What a game, though. I mean, TCU
Yeah.
doing what they always do. They fall behind, and they come back. And, man, they got the ball first, and they were looking like they were just going to score and put this thing out of reach. Max Duggan, though, gets caught short on a fluky play that looked like the running backs weren't ready. He just kind of takes off from that left side and gets stopped down about less than 5 inches away from the goal line. And he gets stopped. And that was second down and goal, I want to say.
Yeah.
Was it second and goal? Because in third and goal,
I
they
believe it
handed
was
off.
second and goal. I believe you. I believe you were right. It was second
So-
and goal. I believe.
Yeah, so then it's third and goal. They hand it off. And this is when the play calling, I'm like, I was a little confused. So they hand it off on third and goal. And it looks like he gets stopped. Now they do an aerial shot. And it looks like the ball's over the pylon, or over the line. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, he might have gotten in. They didn't review it. Like, I don't know why they wouldn't have reviewed it. Because, I mean, it's a scoring play. It could have been a scoring play. Now,
Yeah, but it has to
punt
be a scoring play called on the field first. I'm pretty sure.
Probably.
I think that's yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
they probably could have at least looked at it, like, review, because you could still review it.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't. They don't review
That's
it. It looks because there's a big bunch of bodies, and it looks like he's not on the ground yet. He's just laying down. They called the play dead because it looks like the ball's over the line, though. And so they call down fourth and goal. They call a timeout. They come back out, and they run the exact same play, and they get caught short. And Kansas State ends up kicking a game-winning field goal. But TCU, we'll talk about it in a second, but they are going to give. I'm going to spoil it. They're going to give Michigan. I think they're going to give Michigan a run for their money. The biggest thing though is, can they stop the run? And we're going to talk. We'll talk about it now and a little bit, and later on in a future episode, we'll do a full deep breakdown in this. But that's going to be the biggest. That's going to be the story of the game. Is, can they stop the run or limit the run? I'm not going to say stop it. Can they limit it? But we're going to see. We'll move on though, unless you had anything else to say about this game. Game of the day, though.
I don't really have anything. Yeah, it was definitely the game of the day. There wasn't very many other good games, to be 100% correct with you, though, honest with you. So, only thing I would add is I want to explain my playoff stance with TCU real quick. My stance was that if USC won and TCU lost, there's a chance they don't make it for Ohio State. But the second USC got killed by Utah, they were guaranteed a spot. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
Right, I don't feel like that's that crazy.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on, and we're going to briefly just touch on these ones because these really didn't mean a whole lot.
Yeah.
We'll just kind of run through the score. I mean, Clemson won 39-10 against North Carolina. Cade Klubnik comes in after DJ Uiagalelei played like another crappy game.
Yeah, I watched that game. I don't know how you watched, if you watched it or not.
I was watching the Michigan game, which we'll talk about actually next. But yeah. If you want to just kind of briefly talk about this game, I mean, Drake May didn't play very well.
No,
I went 3-0. Actually, side note, 3-0 in Dr. Pepper challenge.
Yeah, so I'll give you a kind of like a
brief rundown
overview of how the game went. So at the door, UNC went 10 to field and scored, and Clemson's offense looked terrible under DJ. But the second they made the switch, they just I don't know how to explain how it looked, but it looked like the entire team had new life. Like they looked like they finally wanted to be there. For a lot of the past, at least since the Notre Dame game, even then the Syracuse game, it's just looked like Clemson has just been not wanting to play. Like they don't care. They're not physical. They don't tackle. They don't chase the ball down. They can't pass the ball. They can't run the ball. And then the second they make the change to Cade Klubnik, they still can't run the ball. By the way, Will Shipley is still mediocre. He's only good against Florida State.
Go figure, right?
Yeah. But the second they made the switch to Cade Klubnik, it's like that offense just switched. They could pass the ball everywhere. Their wide receivers finally looked good, and their defense all of a sudden looked dominant against the North Carolina offense. I mean, I've never seen Drake May look so uncomfortable an entire game. He never looked really comfortable in the pocket. He was never really he wasn't sacked too many times, I don't think, but he looked not nervous in the pocket, but
just
uncomfortable. He looked like he was seeing something over his shoulder the whole time. You know what I mean? He looked nervous. They just looked outmatched.
I saw. Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah.
I would cut in and out of this, not a whole lot because I was watching the Michigan game. But I saw a highlight the pick he threw in the end zone, just a what are you doing moment. Like you said, he just looked like he was uncomfortable all night, and this is why I didn't want to touch this game in the betting world, because it was either going to be North Carolina was going to get it into a shootout and keep it close, or they were going to get run out of the building, and they got run out of the building. So that's all I do. Clemson's going to go to the Orange Bowl,
against Tennessee.
So another ACC title game, ACC win for them. Uiagalelei has officially is gone to the transfer portal. So kudos, good luck to him wherever he goes. I just think he's overrated as heck. His brother apparently is a 5-star defensive lineman.
That's the only reason. So I've been seeing places like Ohio State and Alabama are interested in DJ just because wherever he transfers, his brother is going to go. So schools want him to go there so that they can get his brother, who's he's a 5-star defensive end or something like that.
All right, we'll move on. And again, we'll briefly touch this one. Tulane gets revenge on UCF, and Tulane wins their first conference championship in the ACC, their first one in a while. I don't know the exact year, the last time they won a conference tournament or title. It's been a while, but they win in front of their home crowd. Dylan, you want to look that up for me?
Yeah, I got it. They won 45-28. They
No, when was the last
dominated.
time
And
they?
oh,
No,
when
when
was
was
the
the last
last
time
time
they
they
won?
won?
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
try to
Look
see
that
if I
up.
can find anything.
Yeah. So like he said, they won 45-28. UCF made it close. This is a game I really didn't watch a whole lot of either because it was during the Georgia game. But I mean, I was keeping up with it.
Yep.
UCF cut it to 3, I think, before Tulane had a big touchdown pass that kind of opened it up again. Um, Kudos to the Green Wave. Hell of a season. This is a team that went 2-10 last year, and now they are
Yeah.
11-2, heading to the Cotton Bowl. They'll take on a USC team, which I think they might win, because USC, who knows who's going to be healthy, who's not going to be playing. It's a game that really they're going to be motivated for. This is the Tulane's national championship, and so look for a Green Wave team to come out firing. I don't know. Did you find the stat?
Yeah, 1998 in
There
the
you go.
Conference USA.
There you go.
And before that, 49
There we go. In the
in the
SEC,
SEC.
probably. There
Yeah,
you go.
yeah.
Yeah, so it was a cool moment, too. Tulane got to storm the field because they're playing on their home field. That was a pretty sweet moment. Kudos to the Green Wave. We'll see what they do against USC. I don't know if you have anything briefly to talk about.
Nope, just really happy for them, personally. I feel
Yeah.
really happy for Tulane. They got some of the best uniforms in the sport, in my opinion. I don't know how you feel, but every single week
Yeah.
they trot out something different, and you're like, man, look at that. That's impressive. But, man, just happy for the Green Wave. So happy they beat UCF. I couldn't have picked an opponent I wanted to see lose more.
Melody
And
Filler.
no,
But
but
they're not gonna
UCF fans on Twitter are so annoying. So
Why? 'Cause
awesome that
have
they
a
don't
national
have something to.
championship.
They say they have a national championship, and they won't stop talking about how they're
It's
the best
pathetic.
team in the state.
Pathetic. Now, to be fair, they were for most of the year, record-wise.
No,
We'll
record-wise,
say,
no, because they weren't. Yeah,
trying to say, I was just gonna say I'm kicking myself for not taking Tulane because I was going back and forth with them all week. But kudos to them. We'll move on now for out of conference championship week into the playoff rankings that got released today. This is where,
yep.
and we'll do a show about this on Tuesday night. We'll say Tuesday or Wednesday.
Wednesday night, I'm going to the hockey game Tuesday.
Oh yeah, so Wednesday night we'll do like a deeper breakdown on this game or on these the playoffs. So the rankings came out
Yeah.
today, or the official playoff field came out. So it was Georgia, Michigan, TCU, Ohio State that rounded out your top 4. Alabama at 5, Tennessee at 6. I have no idea why Tennessee is at 5. What's the point of beating a team head to head if you're not going to be ahead of them? Anyway.
Yeah, but it doesn't really matter at this point. But
I mean, you play a noon
We'll
o'clock,
see.
a noon. I mean, I guess difference in opponents, but anyway, the early thoughts going in, the lines actually the lines out on this game's. Georgia opens up as a 6.5 point favorite, and Michigan opens up as a 9.5 point favorite. And I'm
Yep.
just thinking right now, excuse me, that has a 9.5's a lot in that Michigan game. Early thoughts
So-
going into this.
my early thoughts is I'm gonna repeat something that a other host on a college football podcast said, and Bud Elliott. This is a BCS kind of year, and what I mean by that is there are two teams, in my opinion, that are much better than everybody
Than the
else, who will be playing in the national championship in Georgia and Michigan. I really don't think Ohio State and TCU have much of a shot. We'll go more in depth on Wednesday, but I just looking how these two teams match up against the other two, it just doesn't. It feels like a complete mismatch. It feels like we're just going to get a rematch of last year, and
And we
that
know how that
1v2
went.
will play. Exactly.
So,
So, yeah.
go ahead.
So yeah, all I would say is this really does feel like a year where we could have had the BCS, and this would not have been any different.
Right. 'Cause-
But
yeah.
you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I do agree with that a little bit, just because there hasn't been, and I'm a diehard dog till the day I die, but, I mean, there
Yeah.
hasn't been a team all year, including Georgia, that's looked like unstoppable. There's been points, or looks like there's no shot you're beating them. Do they look elite? Yes. Michigan looks elite? Yeah. Granted, do they play anybody? No. But I will say, yeah, it just has been one of those years when there hasn't been one team like a 2019 LSU, a 2020 Bama, a 2018 Clemson, where they've just kind of asserted themselves as the top team and like, oh, they're going to win it no matter what. So that's what I will say. Even some of these high-profile teams, it's like there's so many flaws in them. And I mean, as a Georgia fan looking at this Ohio State game, I mean, what's different between Michigan from what Michigan did to what Georgia can do? I mean,
I think Georgia can throw the ball better. That's the biggest difference.
They're more balanced. Ohio State still has a bunch of injuries, and we'll see how long it is because this is where I'm a little bit bummed right now. If like this is going to be a bigger game than it should. If this game is being played a week from now, I would be the line would probably be bigger, and B, I wouldn't be as not worried, but not as concerned because you don't want to. You're going to give this team that's dealing with a crap ton of injuries time to heal. Now it's also good for us because Ladd McConkey got hurt, or McClendon got banged up. We also have some other guys. A.D. Mitchell gets a bunch of more time to get fully healthy. He finally played yesterday for the first time. But, man, I'm interested to see how Georgia does against that. And, again, we'll talk about this more. Because, it's going to be how will C.J. Stroud, if Georgia gets pressure like they usually do against some of these bigger offenses, can C.J. Stroud make the play? And I just don't know because, like any other team, you're not going to be able to run on them. And this is what Michigan fell into in our trap last year. And this is why I was never concerned about them last year. Michigan's offense runs through what?
Running back.
Right?
It runs with the running back.
And what is Georgia's biggest strength?
Stopping the run.
Now, the only thing that concerns me is I don't need this turning into an SEC title game of last year when Bryce Young was just where we couldn't get pressure on him, and Bryce Young was eating us up like it was his Thanksgiving dinner. I mean, that's the only thing that concerns me because C.J. Stroud, if you give him time, he will burn you. But what makes me relieved is what Georgia did to Tennessee. I think they can translate that kind of blueprint to what Ohio State. So we'll be interested to see. It's going to be a one hell of a game, I hope, or I just kind of hope that we beat the shit out of them. Sorry if I said that word. I hope we win by 30.
Yeah.
Because Ohio State fans are disgusting Twitter trolls that think they deserve everything. And as far as the Michigan TCU game goes, big story early. I think TCU has the better offense. I think Max Duggan has a shot here to really make a statement, I think. And who the hell is going to cover Quentin Johnson? Because you saw Aiden O'Connell be able to have a little success yesterday. Now, here's
I'll
my
tell you
biggest
this.
thing.
So, Michigan was able to slow down Ohio State, which had Marvin Harrison, the best wide receiver in the country, on them. It didn't matter.
Well, so what Michigan does really well is that they'll let you get your yards, but they hold you in the red zone. They do not let you score in the red zone, which is big. So, but what TCU does, they kind of live on the long shot ball, on the home run ball.
Yeah.
So, it's a tale of two worlds. But what is kind of interesting about that game, both teams kind of thrive in the second half. So which one's going to break? Because if you watch the last couple of Michigan games, when they've played a little better teams in general, they kind of a little slow out of the gates first half. And then even yesterday, they was like 14-13 going into half. And then all of a sudden, it looks like they get shot out of a cannon in the second half. Like, they figure out how to run the ball again. Like, Donovan Edwards just wakes up and she's like, oh, crap, hey, let me just feed me the ball. J.J. McCarthy makes the plays he needs to. But then you look at TCU. It's exactly the same thing they do. Like, they'll let you go up. Like, no lead is safe.
Yeah.
They will do whatever. They will make a play. They will. It's funny because their defense is not very good, but they do enough to get a stop or two to get their offense the ball back to where they can score lightning fast. So that's going to be a good game. I think that's a good game. I would take the points in that game. If that thing boosts up, hammer that in a second. Because I don't think Michigan's just going to be able to run the ball on this team. I think they're going to have to make plays, and if they can't, I think it's a close game. At least a one-score game.
So I think that's the biggest thing we disagree with. Because I completely disagree with you. I think Michigan's going to blow the doors off TCU personally.
You think?
I just don't think they're really. I don't think when it comes to just athlete to athlete, they're comparable. Because Michigan, their offensive line is huge. Their defense is strong. They run the ball on everybody. It doesn't matter who. It doesn't matter how good your defense is, how good your defensive line is. They figure out ways to move the ball on you. The only team they've ever done before is Georgia. And I guarantee you this entire offseason, they've spent time trying to figure out a way to do it to Georgia. I think TCU will score the ball, and I think it'll be. I think if the line grows, take that line. But I don't think 9 points is that crazy.
9.5. No, but they have the hook though.
9.5. Yeah.
10. So
yeah.
See, this is where we'll disagree. I love disagreeing.
Yeah.
I love.
We'll do a whole show on it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I love disagreeing because it makes debating more fun. But so you would think I was going to ask you right before you answered it, which game is more likely to have the blowout in it? You said so.
I think it's going to be Michigan TCU.
What do you think?
Because I think Ohio State.
I think Georgia.
I think Michigan puts up. It's like 48-24. Michigan wins.
I don't think.
I think they could put 48 on them.
But Michigan doesn't. I just don't think they'll put 48 on them.
Well, because that's what I'll say. Ohio State had much better athletes, and it didn't matter.
It's exactly why I don't think that Ohio State-Georgia game is going to be close. So think about it. Two things. Or a couple things. Georgia gets to play in Atlanta again. Where I don't know if you saw. I'll send you a clip. They did their light show at the fourth quarter, and where they all have the lights, and it's funny.
Yeah,
they go into a couple Georgia neutral games, last 2 years. You can see who's a Georgia fan and who's not. By the way, there's no LSU fans there yesterday. The entire stadium was lit up.
Yeah,
entire stadium. So you have that. You pretty much are playing a home game again. Georgia could do
slow down a little bit. It is Ohio State. Those fans. Georgia, there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of LSU fans too.
Not at the same level as Ohio State. I was just saying there was a number that there's over 1 million people registered to the Florida Ohio State fan club.
So it's funny because I was talking. We have a good buddy, both of us. His name's Blake.
Yeah.
I was texting him earlier this morning, right when it got announced, and we text each other right away. He didn't sound super confident because he's like, hopefully you guys don't do what Michigan did. And Georgia playing Tennessee already this year, I think is really going to help them because they can pretty much take the same blueprint to this. Because what did they do against Hendon Hooker? They got pressure on him. They didn't allow him. They played man-to-man. They said, Keeley, you're going to get on Tillman, and I think it was Javon or somebody else, you're going to get on Jalen. You're not going to let them beat you. And what did they do? They did that to a T. They were able to they sacked him 6 times. They made him uncomfortable, and he wasn't able to do anything. I think being able to do that and seeing what Michigan did to Ohio State, what tells me they're not going to do that again. If you could force Ohio State into a throwing contest and just shut them down and make them one-dimensional like Michigan did, you will do just fine. So we'll talk about that more later, but
we'll get more in depth later. But
two compelling matchups, but almost the same. It could just be another playoff, or just another year of playoff destruction.
Playoff just misfortune.
I'm gonna say, and people aren't gonna say it a lot. I think Georgia would manhandle Michigan again.
I think we'll get to see how that outcome goes in the national championship. That's all I'm going to say.
And I think
it will be Georgia, Michigan.
And I think Stetson Bennett is going to outduel C.J. Stroud, and it's not going to be close.
In which way?
I'm going to say it.
Like numbers, pure numbers. He's just going to have better numbers that day, or is it?
I think he's just going to have a better game. I think C.J.
Mm-hmm.
Stroud's going to be uncomfortable and not be able to. He's going to turn the ball over. I think I think Stetson Bennett is just going to have a good game. He's going to show why he. You know what Stetson Bennett has too, and this is just pure fact. He has experience in this big games. Stetson Bennett wins the big game. He has. He did this last year. Every big game that Stetson Bennett's been in, really except for the SEC title game, he's showed up, and he knows pressure hasn't got to him. C.J. Stroud, every time a big game happens, like we said this earlier, he's just kind of hid, kind of hid in his shell.
Yeah.
He hasn't been able to. And Ryan Day, here we go again. It's going to be third base.
Yeah.
Here we go. He's going to have to go back to.
Yeah.
The umpire's going to actually come back to second.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, the only reason I think this game is going to be closer is because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking this is like Ryan Day's legacy game. You know what I mean? Like, can Ryan Day prove the fact that he was not born on third base, that he can make a competitive team on his own? Let's see it. Because let's just say, C.J. Stroud is his quarterback. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Justin Fields was recruited there by Urban Meyer before. Yeah.
And the
so, like, you could. Yeah. So, but he was already like Urban Meyer recruited him to Ohio State. He picked Georgia, and then he transferred to his number 2 school after he didn't get to start at Georgia. So, this is his quarterback. Can he make this team competitive? Because so far they've looked like they don't belong against top 10 teams ever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they lost to Clemson, they lost to Alabama, they lost to Michigan twice now. It's like.
What happens if you're Ohio State, like AD, or just like the alumni or booster? What happens if Ohio State goes out and gets just outclassed again? Like, what do you do? Do you how hot does his seat become? Because you barely make it into the playoff. It takes a prayer, and then you go in and you get mollywopped. Or he wins. But what happens if he goes out and just gets mollywopped?
I don't think they fire him.
No, but I'm not saying. I don't.
No.
His seat's got to be his seat has got to be warm. The inability to win the big game.
Yeah.
Like on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 to 10. Like
I would say, going into next season, he's got like a 5 or a 6. Like the oven's on. Like the oven.
The oven's on.
I would say he's in that top 40 list of coaches on the hottest seat in this sport. You know what I mean?
The oven's preheating, and it's set to 450, and it's at about 200 right now. Like, he needs to get it rolled. All right.
Yeah.
So we'll move on from that. We'll briefly touch some of the just announced, like the New Year's 6 games they got announced. So Clemson and TCU are heading to the Orange Bowl. What a fitting
Tennessee.
Tennessee and Clemson are heading to the Orange Bowl. What a great color game.
Yeah.
If they don't both wear all orange, I will riot.
It would look so ugly.
It'd be so cool though. Let's get Tennessee to wear their all orange and their orange helmets, and let's get Clemson to wear their all orange. I mean, you have to. I think they have to make them mandate it. I mean, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity right now. When will we ever see all 2 orange teams in the Orange Bowl? What are we going to get, Syracuse in here?
Not in the Orange Bowl. I was going to say that would be amazing.
Get Syracuse.
The Syracuse orange in the Orange Bowl.
Yes. All right. And then, all right, we'll move on here.
Yep.
Alabama and Kansas State will be playing in the Sugar Bowl. Kansas State look to upset there. We'll see how many people are, and we'll talk about this later. We'll kind of be like the dropouts, who's competitive, who's motivated to play. USC Tulane playing the Cotton Bowl. That should be a big game for Tulane at least. And then I think a sneaky game that's going to be a very good one. Utah, Penn State in the Rose Bowl. These are 2 teams that are similarly built like the same. And they're not overly powerful, but they can win games. I mean, Penn State went 10-2. So they can win. Their only 2 losses came Michigan, Ohio State. So we'll see you there. And then, so those are the New Year's 6 bowls. We'll briefly touch your some news, and I'll bring it up. I'll start it and I'll let you talk about it. Deion Sanders accepted his terms and conditions, and he will become the next head coach at Colorado. He was there today introducing the team. It has gone viral with him saying
Yeah.
Listen, I'm bringing my own package, and it's Louis. Kind of referring to like, listen, don't listen. I'm letting you know now. You might transfer portal for some of you guys may be the best option. I know his son's coming. His one son's coming with him, the quarterback.
Yep.
The other one is a safety at Jackson State. He's staying. I think he's going to do well. He just got a 5-star to commit tonight. Georgia just got a 5-star to commit tonight. UGA just got Samuel Mbemba. He's a 5-star. He's a 5-star, number 5 guy ranked in the country. But that's not the story. Colorado just got a Texas A&M commit to decommit. He was a 5-star, I think wide receiver corner, and now he's going to Colorado over Miami, Bama, and Ohio State. That's big time. And he apparently, I'm going to let you talk, but I saw a thing. It's like over 200 players had reached out already to Dion in Colorado who are in the portal and stuff, asking them. Like, I know Trey Sanders was another guy who's been vocal about reaching out to get into Dion, who's a Bama transfer.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be good. I don't know how fast he turns it around, but I think they're looking up.
So what I'm going to go in by saying is this. We're going to really figure out the next 3 years is if Dion is just a recruiter or if he is actually a great coach. Because it's one thing to succeed at the FCS SWAC level, because specifically the SWAC is the worst conference in FCS ball because they can't recruit well, they don't have money, they can't play for national championships, so they
can't. He just doesn't want to.
Well, you know what I mean? They can't, but that's how it is.
Well,
so,
he could. He just didn't want to.
No, but the
Celebration Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what the SWAC is designed for. That they don't play in the FCS playoffs; they just play in the Celebration Bowl. But specifically, like if you looked at his FCS scheduling, they were 5 places from the bottom as the worst schedule in the sport. They didn't, even though they finished with a undefeated record, they were never in the top 5 power rankings of FCS ball. So my question is going to be, is when he's at Colorado, because he's not just going to be able to out-athlete everybody, which he was at the FCS level. He's going to have to actually coach hard. He might.
Because he's getting some guys.
But you know what I mean? He'll have to play Oregon, Utah, not USC too much longer, but if they do, they get to a playoff game, even if they have great athletes, is he going to be able to out-coach a Kirby Smart, a Dabo Sweeney, you know what I mean? Because, quite frankly, they're going to be on the same talent level. Like, if you're on the same talent level, he hasn't said yet. He hasn't said anything, but I don't know because a big reason as to why he decided to go to Jackson State was because of the HBCUs. So I don't know if he would follow him to Colorado.
I think it was more Dion.
Yeah, but it was Dion, but a big thing he was saying was being able to be coached by Dion at an HBCU was a big deal. Yeah. But if he enters the transfer portal, I don't think Colorado is going to be his first option. No. I think it's going to be either Georgia or Alabama is going to be the first thing, but we'll see.
Oh, that would be big. Oh my God, that would be sweet.
I wish he would be a Knoll. I wish he would come to Florida State, but
no, why do you want to do that? What would you say? This is like the last thing we'll talk about tonight, but so Colorado's coming off. I think they only had 1 or 2 wins.
Yeah, they've made 1 bowl out of the last 15 seasons.
How many wins would you say next year for Dion is a successful season at Colorado? Is it like you got to get bowl eligible immediately, or is it kind of like slow and steady?
If you win 5 games in your first season at Colorado, I think you can immediately say he's doing good things because that program, like I just said, they've made 1 bowl game in 15 seasons. Like calling a bottom of the barrel is going light.
Now, to be fair, UConn also headed to a bowl game. Like I said, I don't know why. Yeah, you said they weren't.
No, but technically they had to wait. They were bowl eligible, but they weren't they had to wait for other bowls to get picked because they were independent and they weren't Notre Dame.
Okay. Anyway, so I mean, Jim Mora has UConn bowl eligible first season. So
yeah,
I mean, if he gets Colorado bowl eligible, and if it's a 6-6 year, but if he gets him bowl eligible, and anything's possible in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be big. I do also think him going to Colorado is, I think, better than if he went to like USF or like Cincinnati or somewhere. Because it's a Power 5 school. Listen, it's a Power 5 school, but it's in Mountain Time. So by the time all their games are being played, nobody's not really going to be caring about them. Nobody's going to be watching.
Yeah.
Because it's either going to be when some better games are being played, or it's going to be at nighttime, like when they're playing like Washington, and nobody's going to be watching it unless you're on that side of the coast. So I think it does help because he's not getting all that attention like he would be if he was at a bigger school on the East Coast because everybody's up watching those games. So I think that helps right there. But I'll let you say what you're going to say.
So the only thing I would say is that I agree with the Cincinnati point. I don't think it would have been a good thing for him to take Cincinnati. I do think, from what I was reading and what I was checking, it really did come down to USF and Colorado was willing to pay a bigger paycheck, ranging in the $5 million a year range, compared to USF sitting at like $3.5.
Yeah.
I do think.
But if you can win Colorado,
if you can win at Colorado, you can win anywhere. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
Plus,
do
it's
think
Power 5, so
it's a Power 5 school. It's a Power 5 school that has money, that has backing, that has an alumni base that cares, and while the fan base right now isn't very good, if they win in Colorado, they can be good because the Broncos suck. You know what I mean? Like that's something the state can latch onto. Like the whole state can be there.
I think too. I bet you the reason also why he took was the respect sign of level because hey, if I go to USF and win, they're going to say, "Oh, but you're playing in the AAC. There's nobody there. You know who you playing? Tulane." Whereas if I go to Colorado, who's equally as bad, if I win here, I'm a Power 5. I'm dominating. I'm succeeding in the Power 5 in a Pac-12 conference that's going up right now. It's from the looks of it from this year, from going up. So I think that was also like, hey, listen, if I do well here, who knows what kind of opportunities now I'm going to get. So I think it was more of that too, like a respect side. Like, listen, I'm going to get my respect more if I go here and win, whereas if I go here and win. I think that's maybe what it came down to. But yeah, I don't know. That's all I got.
I don't think we'll get more into it because I think we'll do some in the off season. We'll do some grading of some of the hires, what we think of each one. But I'll just say right now, I do think it's a good hire.
Yes.
And I think they're going to recruit well. I think they're going to recruit really well.
I think
we'll see.
I was just going to Dion being able to. He has 2 kids already playing college football right now, and one of them's going to be a quarterback there. But being able to relate with that, and I think he's such a player-friendly coach, whereas like he'll be able to go in and go through the transfer portal or go out and get a recruit. Like, listen, you saw what he did at Jackson State. Like the first time coach, he's never coached college football before. He coached high school, but never coached for college football before. To go into Jackson State, and granted it's FCS swag, but he did really well there. 2 undefeated seasons, or 1? No, he didn't go undefeated last year. He didn't go undefeated last year. Celebration Bowl, but to do what they did last year and this year, I mean that's big time. And so we're gonna see what he does at Colorado. But yeah, we'll move on now.
Yep. So we'll move on to the next point I had. No, nothing else to add really. But I did elect this. This isn't college football related, but it relates to both of our favorite baseball teams out here. So Fred McGriff has been elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Let's go. He is a Atlanta Brave and Tampa Bay Ray legend. We'll really get to see who he goes in with which team. But, man, I am praying he goes in as a Ray because that would be our first Hall of Famer. That is...
You'll get Evan Longoria will go in.
I think Evan Longoria will eventually get in because I think if you look at his numbers, they're good enough. They're good enough for a Hall of Famer, but we'll see because he doesn't have the.
He should go in as Ray.
Yeah. And then one last thing we had is we want to ask you guys, the fans, if you guys want us to attend a bowl game this season, particularly in our neck of the woods, we might consider it. We were looking at possibly the Relic West Bowl or the Gasparilla Bowl just because those are the closest ones to us, and they're, quite frankly, very cheap because nobody's going to want to go see those teams. But we'd be willing to do some live stuff from the game, or maybe some just like stuff at the stadium. Talk to some people. We want to know you guys' opinions on any of that, though.
Yeah, for sure. We got to look at that, and then we'll be. I think schedule going forward. I think we'll have a like Tuesday or Wednesday night. We'll do like a playoff ranking or a playoff like breakdown, and then possibly because there's no games this weekend, maybe we'll be able to squeeze in like a Friday show. And do a Friday show because
Yeah.
We'll do like a Wednesday and a Friday show. Friday we'll do like a bowl breakdown possibly. Some of the top games that maybe we'll go a little more in depth in New Year's Six, and then we'll go in some some key little under the radar games, some interesting games, just non New Year's Six bowls. So and then yeah, we'll just go forward there. I think going forward though, we'll probably maybe limit probably about one or two episodes a week.
Yeah.
Just because there's not a whole lot going on, but we'll let you guys know. Any final thoughts here?
Nope. I'm just excited for our next show. I think we got a lot more to talk about when it comes to it, and then we'll be able to talk on Wednesday about the Heisman finalists too. So I think we'll have a good show on Wednesday. I think everybody's gonna really enjoy it.
Yeah, for sure. So, like we keep saying, you can check us out on Spotify. It's Nose and Dogs Podcast. Please, if you just want to just hit that follow button, rating it. It helps out a lot. We're on Amazon Music. Yep. We're going to get on Apple Podcasts soon. We'll get that up and rolling. Yep. But biggest one, find us on YouTube, Knowles and Dogs Podcast. Just hit that like and subscribe button. And like I said, even if you're viewing for just 5 minutes or you want to watch the whole episode, that would be awesome. By just subscribe. It really helps us out because we're really trying to still just get the channel out. I think we're at 23 subscribers right now, for which, for a smaller podcast being less than a month in, that's still pretty solid. That's pretty solid. So we're going to we're just keep on growing, but we need your guys' help. So if you guys just reach out, tell your friends, just hit that subscribe button. It doesn't take much. Hit that subscribe button. View the channel, view the video for like 5 minutes, if that. Hit that like button. It helps us out. So, and then if you guys have
gives us a little bit extra exposure. It just really helps us grow as content creators.
Yeah, and then if you guys have any ideas you guys want to talk about, leave them in the comments. We'll read them. We'll get it out. So, with all that being said, unless you had any other final comments.
Nothing else to add. Just disappointed the USA lost in the World Cup, but we'll talk about soccer in 4 years.
That's right. We're back in 4 years. I was holding on.
4 year fans right here.
Yes. So, all that being said, this is the Knowles and Dogs Podcast, and we'll catch you guys later.
All right. See you guys.
See you, man.
See you.